What's up, everybody? Jackson here today, as always, with my little brother Chubbs.
Hello, everyone.
And today we're going to be talking about Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt Red, the developer, sort of the release, the launch, the playthroughs that we had. Where I only had one playthrough, and this is going to I'll get more into that later. But I recently was going to play through it again, and Chubbs was as well. And I think you ran into the same problem I had, which we'll be talking about a little further along in the video. But essentially, I feel as if my first playthrough, where I 100%ed the content available, because there are choices that can cut off certain content and endings and things like that you can't see if you don't do certain things, which is awesome. And that's really, when you look at Cyberpunk 2077, the reason we're calling this video an impressions video is because I really truly believe that this still feels to me like an early access title. A very well polished one, but when you consider all of the issues, not only performance wise, bugs wise, game breaking bugs, file wiping bugs, all sorts of that sort of stuff, to where that's just now starting to be addressed in a big way just recently with a couple of patches, which still have nothing to do with meaningful gameplay changes. Now you could argue that the police, where they're now in the original release of Cyberpunk, they immediately spawn in wherever you are. It didn't matter, they'd spawn into buildings. They would spawn in a certain radius away from the player, behind the player, to try to give the illusion that they've come from, somewhere else. But no, they're just spawning right in. And it's apparent as fuck. It's kind of like in The Witcher 3, the way you whistle for Roach and he'd always come from behind, even though sometimes that would just fuck him up to the point where now you gotta run away and find him again and call him again.
Yeah.
Because he's gone somewhere, because of that illusion of like... But at the same time with Roach, in that instance, I would argue that ended up overall being a good decision. Because one thing with CD Projekt Red that remains true even in Cyberpunk 2077, for a majority of the experience, there's a lot of fucking wind and grind and waste the player's time going on in fucking Cyberpunk 2077, which is incredibly fucking regrettable, especially considering that the same things were in The Witcher 3, but were infinitely more rewarding. And I don't just mean in things gained and things you gain for doing that. Yeah, they were more rewarding in The Witcher 3, but it wasn't just about the loot that you got in the chest at the end of the experience. There was an experience happening in The Witcher 3 where, for instance, one of my favorite ones to point out in this for this example when I bring it up in conversation is there's a house in the Blood and Wine that you come upon, and you find out that the mother had committed familicide, or she had killed off her children and then hung herself, so that when the dad came home he saw this, and then he went inside and killed himself. And this is just it's a place on the map with a question mark that you go to explore basically the random side shit in most of your other games. Your Ubisoft Bandit Camp, your fucking whatever. You know what? If you don't understand what I'm saying, then you probably aren't very familiar with open world games. If you're familiar with open world games, you understand what I'm saying. The 10 objectives on the map that are always the fucking same. That are go here, do that. And this is where, with RPGs especially, the point is to get the character the player is interested in. You gotta make him believe that he's there. You want him to feel like he is exploring this world and becoming upon discoveries that are insane and unique and interesting to experience from the perspective of the player character that you are in control of, to the point where there is no me anymore. There's Geralt, the Witcher, and he's on a fucking monster hunt, and he needs to, make sure that he has this oil for his sword or he's gonna be fucked. And he knows that because he's a Witcher and he's been at it for a long time. And you know that he's going to make it out of this okay. And you're going to help see him through it by doing these things. And it's like, that's the bridge in the player's imagination that gets increasingly harder and harder to get people to cross the further and further they get towards the grave. Once you get closer and closer to the end of your life, you slowly start to lose that bridge. It goes away. You become calloused and hardened to the realities of your existence that's around you, right? And when you can take someone embittered by real life shit, lost, and fucking pull them into this and make them feel like they are something and part of something greater, that is when you are a master of the craft. And CD Projekt Red did that with The Witcher 3. I've heard a lot of people lambast that game as saying it's only the illusion of choice. Those people have never played The Witcher 3 to completion, doing 100% of the side missions available in that game. If they had, they would not make such a fucking bold statement. They would not dare. Because when you play that game and you see new quests turn out, and then you find those new quests and you find a new experience gleaned from them. For instance, just another one, spoilers by the way throughout for Cyberpunk and The Witcher 3 if that wasn't apparent already. But in The Witcher 3 there's where you're helping Croc-on-Crate's kids, you know, see through their deed that's going to launch them to be either becoming the king or queen of
Skelliger.
I almost said Skyrim.
Skelliger. The Skelliger Isles.
It's not fucking far off, really.
Yeah, not bad. Not
anyway, so there's a quest you can do for Mad Lugos's kid, but only if you've already reached a certain point in the story to where he tells you basically you have to do that in order to repay your debt to him for him letting you out of jail. Like there's something you do that lands you at odds with him. It's been a while, but I was like insanely, like I played it through so my first playthrough with The Witcher 3 was almost a 100% playthrough. And what I mean by almost a 100% is I didn't do all the exploratory marks on the map in all the zones. I'm pretty sure I did all of them in Velen and White Orchard, but and probably Kaer Morhen, because Kaer Morhen was a smaller zone and I really enjoyed exploring Kaer Morhen. But the thing is that even having not done those and felt like I didn't need to do them, I had everything I needed to push forward. I had all the gold I would ever need at that point in time, because that was before Grandmaster Witcher Armor, which was an amazing add-on, but we're not even going to talk about DLC. My first playthrough upon release, after I finished it, after doing all of those monster hunts, all that stuff, I immediately wanted to replay it again. And it wasn't just because I wanted to play it through on the hardest difficulty instead of the mid difficulty. That was part of it. But I also just wanted to experience that story again and see what would happen this time if I was an asshole to Ciri. What would happen? You know, would she end up becoming a Witcher then, or would something different happen?
To see a different ending.
What if I don't kill King Radovid this playthrough? What will happen if I don't kill King Radovid this playthrough?
And that's one thing that really drives me nuts about the illusion of freedom in the Witcher 3 argument.
Bullshit.
Is I could point out, okay, well, what makes games like Dark Souls great RPGs?
Mm-hmm.
And people point out one of the strongest points is the level of immersion and how it feels like the experience, you are an active part of the experience, and the experience isn't just happening around you.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
You're
not the point of it.
Exactly. You're not the point of
it,
but you're actively a part of it, because it feels like there's NPCs that do their own thing. They have their own routine, but you interact with them.
And
if you
course of
and if you don't, they'll just quit showing up.
Yeah, they'll disappear. They'll die.
You know what I mean? So that's what I mean, is it feels like you are an active part of the experience, and it's not the game is just happening around you and the story is happening around you whether you participate or not.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's one thing about The Witcher 3. Is one quest that I always point out as being an excellent example of why that game is a great RPG and actually has player freedom is the Kira Metz quest.
Yep.
You know, you have to interact with her to find about the witches of the woods, maybe.
Yeah, the
I'm not
Crookback
sure.
Bog. You
I've
do.
always done that, right?
You do. Well, you
do.
hear that she has You hear that Siri has interactions with witch, and so you go to Kira Metz because she's the local witch.
Right, but then she hires you to help you for the job with the lantern.
Yeah.
And that's like all optional stuff.
Yeah,
And
you don't
can
even have to
ignore
do that
it.
shit.
You don't have to do it. You can do it. You can do that quest multiple ways. You can kill her. You can have her survive. She can run off with a formula. She can run. You can tell her to go to Kaer Morhen. You know, there's multiple different ways in which one single event can cause ripple effects throughout the entirety of the game.
Yeah.
And can change it in multiple varying factors within itself.
To where it's not just 2 playthroughs, like you've seen everything there is to be seen.
Yes. Or Horizon Zero Dawn and Assassin's Creed Origins, where it's one and done.
Yeah.
I've played this.
Yes.
I know what's going to happen.
Horizon Zero Dawn will begin the same way it began the last time you played it, and it will end the same way it ended the last time you played it.
Exactly.
But it has a skill tree. Sure, you'll eventually unlock all of those skills and be able to have all of them on your character, but you gotta earn them first because it's an RPG.
Yeah.
and that's the when you look at The Witcher 3, what's so sad is I feel like they already had figured out the balance between where it's like accessibility and hardcore RPG. Because here's the thing, the two aren't mutually exclusive. You do not have to make your game intellectually dumber because your audience is dumb. You can say that you need to make combat easier. I'll agree with that. Because I have family members who would not be able to play The Witcher 3 on Death March. They would not be able to. But if I put it on easy, they would be able to. And you know what they would not have a problem with? Is being able to understand the story and interact with the story. Because the story is so well crafted that it leaves those openings for you, Geralt, to be a different way each playthrough. To where I said, like, you can be awesome, good dad to Ciri, or you can treat her like shit the whole time. But the game lets you do that. And the interesting part of that isn't that, oh, that's fucked up that you should be a dick. I only like the ending where Ciri becomes a Witcher. That's the only ending I think there should be. I don't think there should be the bad ending because then there's the risk that I might get the bad ending because I wasn't paying attention during certain dialogue choices and I just clicked the first thing that came to my mind and it fucking ruined it for me. It's like, okay, so you weren't able to pay attention and you picked the wrong option and now you've gotten the bad ending. That's okay. Play through again. Pay attention this time. Be smarter this time. But they don't want that to happen. Because here's the interesting thing about the audience that most of these companies are trying to foster and breed. They are stupid. They want incredibly stupid people and children to get interested in their products. So you can't intellectually challenge those people with intricate layers of quests that change and morph and depending upon your experience, on what's being said. Okay, well, I want to say this in response to this situation that's happening right now. I don't want to talk to people. I just want to put a game on and have a gameplay, and that's it. I don't want to.
I just want to turn my brain off.
And so what's so goddamn,
why not immerse yourself?
Yes, and that's what I mean about the perfect balance between accessibility and hardcore RPG is because you don't need to remove the hardcore RPG aspects of an interweaving story, an intricate class system with craftables, materials you need to go out and seek, so that you can make your experience fighting X monster easier. Because, on Death March, it's damn near fucking, you have to have oils. You have to have potions. You just have to. Mm-hmm. Outside of using mods that give you double XP and shit like that to, make it easier on future playthroughs for you and modify the experience to tailor what you want this playthrough. Outside of that, vanilla fucking Witcher 3, on Death March, you're going to need that shit. Mm-hmm. It's going to be important that you have oils and all that stuff. And that adds a layer of discovery because, oh, fuck, that's the one I've been looking for. That's that plant I've been looking for, and I found it down here in a fucking cave in a bag in this monster's lair. You know what I mean? This cave troll's lair. I found it, you know? And it's those sorts of things aren't exclusively like, you can't tell me that that's what you mean when you mean accessibility, because that's when I get to have this problem with you, to where I'm like, what, you don't want your audience to become smarter as a result of interacting with your video game? Like, you don't want your audience to grow intellectually playing through your game. You don't want it to challenge them intellectually and have them have to flex their brain for the experience, right?
Right.
That's a no-no. Let's not do that. Let's make it easier and dumber and make it more curtailed and to the point where it is like Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
Where it is like God of War, where all of a sudden it's a fucking RPG because there's a leveling system so that you
and
can...
a gear system and different weapons to choose from.
That's completely arbitrary and pointless.
Yeah.
Doesn't even need to be there, because eventually you're going to have unlocked all that stuff anyway.
Yep.
You're just going to have everything unlocked.
And I would say that is the real illusion of freedom.
Yes.
Is multiple different weapons to choose from. Sure, it's freedom. Sure, it's freedom to approach combat whatever way you want. Sure, it's freedom to use whatever style of combat you want. But how much of that really shakes up the experience of the game?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
You know what? It does. And you know what? Here's the thing. It does,
but I'm saying, like, that's why I say...
I'm not going to argue that there isn't a place...
is the entire experience. You actively feel like you're a part of it. You feel like you're a part of the story. Like, you have options based off of who you are as a person.
Yes.
And what you want to roleplay as within the game.
Here's the thing. I'm not going to argue that these sorts of games don't have their place, either. I'm not going to say that they're not good games.
No.
They're, like, bad... Like, it's not good, because I actually enjoyed Horizon Zero Dawn. But the thing is after I was done with it, I was done with it. And what was disappointing to me was that I could see that if this had been given the sort of care that The Witcher had been given, it would be one that I'd immediately want to start over again. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a single, one and done, on to the next one. Right? I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. The developer of It Takes Two recently came out and he was doing an interview where he was saying, we didn't make this for infinite replayability. That wasn't a concern for us. And in fact, what's so wrong with a one and done game? What's wrong with that? And I was reading it and I was kind of starting to, would be refreshing, in fact, every now and then, if that was the sort of thing that would happen, because you get some games now like Outriders and it just feels like, here's a 15-20 hour campaign and now you just grind, because this is built for people who like loot caves. You know what I mean? Where they just like to, oh fuck, I got that fucking cool ass fucking legendary gun, and it'll help me get more fucking legendary guns, shooting the same fucking mobs that I shot 100 fucking times already. But it's amazing because look, I got a new legendary gun that I can shoot the same enemies with 100 million more times to get a new legendary gun. And it's like, and I'm not even saying that those don't have their place. My problem is that those have become dumbed down to the point where they're not even trying to be anything other than that experience. Where it's shoot the same mobs for 100 hours and get a gun that you can shoot the same mobs with for another 100 hours. Yes, very derivative of each other
on the market.
And just homogenized and watered down to the point where it doesn't even have any fucking meaning.
Yeah.
That's why Borderlands 3 was such a refreshing fucking experience. Because they give you that experience if you want that experience, but they also give you a kick-ass fucking single-player campaign that you can play co-op with friends that's intricate and interwoven, and I personally enjoyed the shit out of it. So, like, they also give you that experience. And that's like, and you can tell that they cared and they tried. They wanted these maps to feel unique, these planets to feel unique from each other. They're like, you know what, let's give them a fucking Mass Effect spaceship that they're in control of. Even if it is just a simple go to this menu, click on the new planet, watch a cutscene of you zooming there. It's like, I'd rather that than just, oh, fast travel to the next planet, you're here now.
Yeah.
Without that, like, it's like that shit adds something to it, man. That makes me feel like we've progressed. We've fucking taken
adds
the
a
shit
layer
from
of
Bandor.
immersion.
Yes, it makes me feel like you care, man. It makes me feel like you give a shit about your craft and you want me to be impressed with it. And that's the thing about so many of these RPGs, is they just feel so fucking safe. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the fucking Assassin's Creed Odyssey that is propped up by like 10 of the same activity spread across a giant map that's I never thought I would say a game was too big. That game is too big. It has too much shit. But then, oh, look, there's time skips and level ups you can buy. And you realize that it's been built for the type of audience that doesn't want to be intellectually challenged. There's not many meaningful choices. There's romance options that have nothing to do with the rest of the game. There's these things that they're like, oh, well, this is a safe thing that we can do that won't challenge the intellect of our players too much because we want them to buy fucking experience points from our online microtransaction store. Right? And I'm not saying there's no place for that shit. That shit can exist too. I don't give a fuck. What's so disappointing about Cyberpunk 2077 to me, a fucking hardcore Witcher 3 fanboy, Cyberpunk really, really let me down because it didn't feel like it tried to impress me as much as The Witcher 3 tried to impress me. And I'm not talking about with the fact that I had to upgrade my fucking graphics card to even play the fucking version of the game I bought. Because I couldn't put in for a fucking refund because the fucking trying to get it working by troubleshooting Reddit threads and shit like that went over 4 hours. 4 hours spent in the game just trying to get it in a functional fucking state so I can play it where it looks good and runs smooth. And I could not accomplish those two things in Cyberpunk until I upgraded my graphics card. Once I upgraded my graphics card and those problems went away, I was able to step into it and experience it. And I'll tell you what's so disheartening the most is because it's almost like with Zack Snyder's The Justice League cut. I see so much potential, realized potential. And then I see so much horrible laziness, waste of my fucking time, shit that's there just because you gotta have it there, because you've gotta have quests in an RPG. And they don't feel like, and then you have other ones that are super amazing with cool NPCs to interact with, and then they're just buried on the map in the same fucking color-coded quest system as all this meaningless fetch shit. And fetch shit that never reaches a level to me. And you can argue that it does, because here's another aspect where I say, this game company, CD Projekt Red, this isn't like Assassin's Creed. This isn't like a Horizon Zero Dawn, where it's, you know, it's a good story that you play through, that once you're done with, because it's not going to change. Nothing here is going to change. It's the same thing, beginning to end. Maybe a couple of little choice differences here and there, or in the case of the newer Assassin's Creed Origins, playing through as a male or a female character, which is awesome. That's great. I appreciate that they do that. But Cyberpunk goes the next step, and even these stupid fetch quests for these fixers that are meaningless, that have no meaning, they're pointless. That's the thing that really starts to piss you off about this game, is it's like you see the infrastructure. It's there. A few tweaks here and there could make it better. Will they do that? That's why this is an impressions video. Because I can't review a game that's in early fucking access.
Yeah.
This game is in early access. And it's a live service game. Coming from the people who run GOG, DRM free fucking products. That is your reason I use your store. Prioritize it if I want a product. Except for Cyberpunk, which I had to buy on Steam. Yeah.
Just to have it run, just to get a copy.
Because we had heard things about the launch, we had heard about the console release, and I was like, well, that's not surprising, because Austin tweeted a couple days ago that there's like gonna be no console review codes. Right. Like, that never happens. You prop up the console over PC all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where most games are. And that's the thing about this, is playing this with mouse and keyboard. I was like, okay, I'm playing this with my fucking controller. And it's the same thing. Like, so Fallout 3, I play with mouse and keyboard. But Fallout 4, I play with a controller. Because you can tell that the people who developed the game were developing it around a controller. And then you see just a quick side trail and a reconnect to what I was saying earlier about dumbing down your product for your audience. Look at the progression that fucking Bethesda took. They went from Fallout 3. This is not something that I think I would praise as like in the same way that people praise like it for killing children, on screen, like how ballsy of them to do that, like Hollywood doesn't do that, like, oh, it's so great that they did that. Like that alone makes this movie good because they killed a child on screen, you know what I mean? No, but there's a quest in Fallout 3, and I had never found this, and I'd done several evil playthroughs. I had never found this until my most recent playthrough, where I was going a very evil, conniving character. Like, I had decided that I was going to be sort of a sociopathic, very, like, clever, chameleon-style guy. Almost like in Triri, but darker. So, like, that was kind of what I was going for with the psyche of the character I was creating. And that's the greatest thing about the Fallout series, is even Fallout 4, you can lose yourself in that aspect of, like, but Fallout 4 is so much harder to do just because but they go from that where there's a quest where as an evil character, you can kidnap a kid and sell him into slavery. That is so fucked up. I couldn't even believe it. I found that quest, I was like, wow. But then I started to think about it, and I was like, what if you were a game developer and you were creating quests and you were like, okay, so what if someone goes dark in our game? What's the darkest fucking thing you could think of ever doing? And someone in the room, probably a father, was like, what's fucking dark, dude, is people who kidnap kids and sell them into slavery at a young age. Like, that is as fucking dark as you can go, man. And so they're like, bam, put it in the game. Because it's that level of, we care enough about the role-playing elements of this game that we want to give that dude who wants to make that psycho character playing around in our world. We know he's not a psycho character, but we want his psycho character that he's playing in this game, the character that he's writing in his head and building into this world. We want him to be able to do that because we want this game to be immersive as a motherfucker. We move from that to Fallout 4, where you're Nate, or whatever her name was, and this is the way it is, and this is the way the main story is. You have a son, and you have to find your son, and you have to do this, that, or the other, and you can be as bad as you want, but it doesn't matter in the end. It doesn't matter. That's all sandbox shit now. That's relegated to the player having to make up their own story, or allow modders to come in and add different things for you to play around with in that aspect. Because this company has lost its ability to create intricate storytelling, or they've decided they don't want to fucking do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And they've decided that they want to move towards a different sort of thing. And that is Fallout 76. Everyone here knows what Fallout 76 is. If you don't, and you're someone who has deluded yourself into thinking that that's a good game, that that's a good move coming from Bethesda Game Studios, that's the direction we'd like all their products to move in, quite frankly, well, you can fuck off my channel. Bye-bye now. Because that is the absolute worst conclusion of what we could see happen to CD Projekt Red. And they're well on the fucking road to that sort of thing. To where we're going to sell. And in this, like, there's those overall outfits. And we were like, what point do these serve? And then I was like, Chubbs, do you think that's going to be something for online? Like, they'll sell outfits
for the
that you
online
can buy.
game mode, yeah.
For the online game mode that they're going to have. And it's like, this is the thing
if
about
it even happens now.
Yeah, if it even happens now. That's
Cyberpunk Online.
And it's those sorts of things where you see in Cyberpunk, you see that it's like, and there's more risk. There's more freedom to play V
there is.
In a different way than you would play, like, Nate.
Yes.
Because V doesn't have a kid. But one aspect that bothers me is Jackie, where he's just all of a sudden your friend, and they don't earn it. and then they push this. Oh my!
This relationship arc.
So that's like the very first part of this game.
But let's talk about that. Let's break down the story into these many parts, all right? So you get to the intro, which is on the rails, right?
On the rails.
On the rails. And then Act 1, it opens up and gives you the illusion of an open world where there is side jobs and there is side missions, but you're so fucking underleveled. Don't even try.
Yeah, don't even bother.
Don't even fucking try.
You have to, and the only way to differentiate between them is to look at each individual mark. And what is so daunting,
and that's Act 1, okay?
Yeah.
But then you go to Act 2, and it's Act 2. This is the great part. Now it's gonna finally open up, and the game's actually gonna begin. And then Act 2 ends, and that's the game.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, because then there's Act 3 is just the end.
Yeah. That's the end.
It's so stunning. Okay, so here's the issue I have with the whole experience of Cyberpunk is the story is awesome. The main campaign is tight. Keanu Reeves, I've heard a lot of people bitch saying he's doing a bad phoned-in performance. He's not trying. I've been a fan. You've been a fan.
I have not heard that. I'm sorry. That just made me...
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's like one of the biggest things people are piping about on the internet is his performance is bad.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm a fan of Keanu Reeves. You're a fan of Keanu Reeves. We're big fans. I've been going way back, except for Knock Knock. Wow, what a trashy pile of shit. Just recently checked that out. Awful movie. Trash. Garbage. Burn it. But the thing about Keanu Reeves is in this is he's the best part of the game for me. Easily the best part of the game. The interactions with you and with V and Johnny Silverhand are the most compelling, interesting part of the game, especially when you get into the soul killer technology and these engrams that basically make people immortal so they can be tortured by Arasaka Core. All that shit is so damn compelling.
And
that's all the best part.
The world.
I really love that this looks like if you hyper evolved Back to the Future and like made it even more industrial futurist.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I feel like Night City is like. I feel like it's
There's
that
the
very,
neon
like...
colors,
80s,
even with the clothing.
Yeah, that 80s idea of what the future would be. Like, a lot of people are comparing it to fucking... Oh, God, Blade Runner. I honestly wouldn't. I don't think it's so much like Blade Runner. As, like I said, I think it's more in line with something like Back to the Future, too. With that future, the clothes, the bionics, like that's what I personally was more into. And it's almost like
aesthetic of it, the visuals of it.
Yeah,
as far as like the world, I
it's
viewed
that
it
future
more...
if Griff ran Night City.
Yeah.
If Biff got away with it and Griff ended up running, Night City. That's what Night City.
He ended up running Night City, but then also there's like this clash of every culture coming to America because it's the fall of American culture. So you have like Arasaka Corporation.
And you have the corporations at war with each other. You have Militech, which is an entire corporation just based around being a corporation's army.
Yeah.
And Heavy Hitter. It's interesting as shit. And that's the thing I really like about Night City, definitely, is the flavor. And that's where you start to see the potential, what we're talking about, and how many different ways they could go with that. Where it's Night City, okay, we got fixers, there's gigs. You're a mercenary, you're playing V, you're a mercenary. You're either a corpo who got fucked over, you're a nomad who's decided to leave his tribe and come live in the city, or you're a street kid born and raised on the streets of Night City, recently returned from out of town in Miami or something like that. Personally, I felt like Street Kid was the best. My Nomad playthrough didn't make it that far because I was playing a female V Nomad and I could not stand the female V's voice. It drove me insane. I just couldn't do it. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about her voice, I'm remembering that the female character in Fallout 4 was Nora. That's how awful her voice is. It reminded me of Nora. The experience, like, not only just, it's not even that it's their voice. It's the performance.
Right.
I felt like female V was much hammier and cheesier
Ham-fisted
than
up.
Mel V. I felt like Mel V felt more natural, the voice actor, more at home with the lines. And that could honestly be because it was written with a male V in mind and not a female V. So female V's lines feel stilted because they're written for a male character. I don't know with this game anymore.
Honestly,
With how many things changed and shit, who knows anymore?
Who knows? Yeah.
But that's the biggest issue I have is like you think of how you could interact with that world, and just the first thing I'm going to say is the gigs and the fixers and all the way that is handled is inexcusably bad. And what I mean by inexcusably bad is this isn't like there's something off here. Like I can't quite point it down, but no, this is obvious shit. You, in the way these gigs work, you enter a new section of Night City. The second you enter the section, the guy who runs the gigs in the place, or the lady who runs the gigs in that particular part of town, immediately blows your cell phone up. Hi, I'm this person, and we actually get the introduction to Padre. But Padre's in that opening cutscene that sums up the entire relationship with Jackie and V's becoming a mercenary. Where it's such a cheap shit. Like, how awesome would it be to, instead of fucking see this cutscene of you and Jackie becoming good partners and great friends, how about if you actually played it? How about if you had to earn your name in Night City and work yourself up through the fixers so that you actually, your street cred hits this now, instead of just cluttering your map with more yellow marks to confuse the actual interesting content in the game with all the fucking, hey, there's some guy who's out to fucking cheat on his old lady and she wants a divorce, so go in there and steal some shit off of his computer and don't be seen. Instead of all of that shit, that's so uninteresting. Like that, the way I explained it is more interesting, and in paper it could be interesting. This is why I would say that like CDPR do try here. They try to reach that level in The Witcher 3 where it's like that exploration where let's have a story behind. It's like it's not even so much that it's go fetch the apple. It's why am I going to get the apple? Who needs the apple? Who's stopping me from getting the apple? Why does that guy want to stop me from getting the apple? Fuck that guy. I'm going to kill that guy and I'm going to take that fucking apple. It's the difference between go get the apple and here's an interesting reason for going and getting the apple. And CDPR is heads and above the best in the fucking industry in that aspect. But in this game, they slipped to a point where I got bored. I got so bored of doing these side objectives and side things, and at the end of the day, I only 100%ed them to prove a point that the game is fundamentally broken in the amount of crafting and money it gives you. That I got to the point where I wanted to there's a set of gear you can get throughout the game that belongs to the iconic Johnny Silverhand, the man who has hitched a ride in your subconscious via the chip that you have stolen at the beginning of the game and had to insert into your head in order to keep it from basically breaking down so that you can sell it later. And it eventually is the reason you're alive, because V gets shot in the head by Dexter Deshawn. Another wasted opportunity. Another just here's this guy. 5 minutes later, he's gonna fuck you over. And we're going to want you to feel something from that. And this is the thing about CDPR. You build up Imlereth to me. And if you've played The Witcher 3, you know what I mean by that. That is one of the most satisfying conclusions to one of the most reprehensible villains that I've ever experienced in any video game in my entire life or in any fucking other media. I've never fucking experienced that sort of fucking emotional involvement in what's going on screen in a movie, in a TV show, or in anything.
Right.
That build up to Imlereth, that earned feeling when you as Geralt slay him is insane good. And here it's just like, let's let him spend about an hour with Jackie, then we're gonna kill him off. Let's let him spend about an hour with Dexter Deshawn, then we're gonna have him betray him and kill him off. And it's just the whole first T-Bug dies, I guess, because she's not around anymore. Let's introduce him to this character. She's gone.
Gone.
First 4 hours of gameplay.
It is so muddy, that whole intro. Even Takamura, which is the one thing that I brought up, is like, so his whole introduction is he is working for Arasaka Corps. He is Yorinobu's right-hand man. Is it Yorinobu the dad or
Yorinobu is the son.
Saburo.
Yes.
Saburo is the dad. So he was like his right-hand man, Saburo. And Yorinobu killed his father.
In front of you and Jackie when you're at the heist. I mean, I hope we're not having to... I'm sure the amount of money this game made, I'm sure everyone's played it. If not, go watch a fucking synopsis, then come back.
We put up spoilers. But anyway, his whole character introduction is, okay, so he's the right-hand man of this guy that got killed. This guy is framing the murder on us because he knows that there's a break-in, and especially to the point where your character...
Well, I don't even think he knew that there was a break-in. He was just saying there was a break-in. Well, he said there's
poison, but he used you to frame
Well, because
the
once
murder
he found out that you had been in there
so,
and
like,
you stole the chip.
For all intents and purposes, Takamura should believe that you are Saburo's killer. And even when you see him in the landfill, it's him with Dexter Deshawn, and he's pointing a gun at Dexter, and he's forcing Dexter to show him where he dropped your body after he betrayed you. And he takes Takamura to the landfill, and then, like, he pulls you out of the rubble and grabs you, and then out of nowhere, he just kills him.
Yeah, kills Dexter, boom.
Takamura,
that's the end of that.
Yeah, end of that. And then Takamura, he gets on the radio and he calls Yorinobu and says, I have your father's killer. And it's like, oh shit. So like, he's dragging us into the corporation. We're going to get tortured or like something bad's going to happen. And so like, I automatically assumed that that's what it was. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he wakes you up, hands you a freaking healing item, tells you to get jacked up, hands you a gun, and says he needs your help. And then, like, you get into this whole gunfight. And
that doesn't even matter.
Both of you end up wounded, and then all of a sudden you're in a diner, and he's on the run for his life from Arasaka Corps and Yorinobu. And, like, it's just so...
So all you can assume from that is that Yorinobu didn't trust him because he was his father's right-hand man, so once he had tracked you down, he sent those guys to kill you and him.
And he knew that.
Yes, because he knew that they were trying
to... And because he knew that, he knew that you weren't the murderer.
But that's another giant problem with the game, is that there's these shooting scenes in this car during this cutscene. You're shooting enemies, but you don't have any effect. Like, the shit is just gonna happen.
Yeah. There's so much of that, like so much.
Now that's illusion of control,
and that's where I say like there could be a whole layer of immersion added to the game.
Oh yeah,
and like I'm just gonna point out, for instance, the best example of being able to do this without being like a full-fledged hardcore RPG is Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
Right? And like the reason why I say it does this perfectly is because the incentive to go to a location, the incentive to go do a mission, the incentive to do anything in that game, to hunt, to craft, to do anything, is the reason in of itself.
Yeah.
The reason why you want to go hunt that thing, to craft that, is the incentive.
Is to just craft that thing.
Is to just do it. And
because
it's like,
so
why are you going to your camp at night?
Yeah.
Because you want to fucking rest. You want to wake up in the morning. You want to drink coffee. You want to get your meal. You want to get your buffs. You know, if you don't want to do the chores, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to do that, it's
that.
interesting not to do it. And that's why I say the reason why you do things in that game is the incentive enough. And Cyberpunk, it just doesn't feel that way.
No.
And a layer of immersion that they could do is they could add it, because I was playing it, and in the introduction, one of the first things that it tells you to do in your apartment is look at your computer through emails. And so I looked through the emails, and the first one is you're going to be evicted from your apartment because you're past due on rent. And so it's like, I thought this is like a framework of something that they may have intended. Like something that they may have intended as a layer of immersion.
Like you'd have to start paying rent.
And like pay rent, and you'd have to constantly be
on the job. And if that's the case, then that's just more unforgivable about how fucking off the economy is in this game.
Exactly. And that's why I'm saying
100%ing all the content. 100%ing all of this fucking content. That's all bullshit. And what drives me nuts about the gigs is that the gigs There's no goddamn reason that those couldn't be color coded differently than the interesting side quests in the game that have NPC interactions, choices, conclusions, things like that. There's no reason they can't, because you have the scanner objectives, the NCDPD scanner objectives, which are just
blue
bullshit side stuff.
random events.
Here's a fucking bandit camp. Take out the bandit camp. And they do try to add a layer there by adding notes in the environment. There's some of that going on. None of it, to me, personally, reached the fucking interest that I had while combing through The Witcher 3's world.
Yeah.
None of it ever reached that level of interest.
No.
None of it did. Except for the main campaign. All the compelling stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
even
there are
then,
certain...
That's the second half. That's the end half of the first campaign. That first section of the campaign, the heist at Arasaka, is so awesome. It's just that when you realize that now it's over. And it's the same sort of thing that God of War did. Where God of War starts you as Kratos cutting down a tree for your wife's funeral pyre. It's lazy, cheap writing that's trying to get the player emotionally involved before the fucking title screen has left.
Without earning it.
From the title screen. Without earning it. I would have rather have liked to enjoy knowing who his wife was.
Yeah.
Feeling that emotional loss with Kratos when she died instead of immediately inserting me there. Like, immediately. It's so heavy-handed and desperate to me when things like that happen. And it's the same thing with Naughty Dog. But then Naughty Dog takes the time to craft it later into a more interesting thing that develops along, because that's... So for instance, when I say Naughty Dog, I'm referring to The Last of Us, the first game, where Joel loses his daughter very early on in gameplay. Within a couple of hours, she's gone, you're moved on into the future. But what that does is it not... And yeah, that's a heavy-hitting scene. But it's definitely cheap, in my opinion, because you're introduced to the daughter right away. But at least they take the time to, okay, well, you're playing as the daughter before she dies. And that's like, holy shit, well, why would I be playing as the character that immediately dies? And then that's the sort of thing where then, on top of that, it builds into Joel and Ellie's relationship throughout the rest of the game. And it builds towards his reasonings for the end of the game. But in the case of God of War, it never felt like that to me. It just felt like it was trying to cheaply be like, and it was meant to be like about Kratos and his son, fair game, whatever. I didn't find myself interested in it because I personally felt like the combat I didn't enjoy the combat. I didn't enjoy the faux RPG elements of a leveling system that is arbitrary skill unlocks that eventually you'll have all of anyway. Like that shit, I get burned out on that shit really fast. It's the reason I didn't finish Assassin's Creed Odyssey when I got it for like $20 on discount. It's just, I still have never finished that game. Just can't do it. It's too goddamn time consuming. And replaying the Cyberpunk when this happens and you realize that, wow, so this is just one of those. I was hoping it was one of those other ones, you know, the ones with NPCs, with cool stories, with choices. Like the one with the prisoner who wants to crucify himself to remind people of the sacrifice of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's so fucking interesting. You could look at it in so many different ways. You could look at it as sacrilegious. You could look at it as enlightening and lifting up. You view it as like what it really is just the sort of sickness that has infested this society to where this is like, they're going to let this happen.
They're not just
only they're going to promote it and make fucking money off of it.
Yeah, and they're going to live broadcast
Yeah.
him getting crucified like Jesus Christ.
And those are in the same category as this place, you know, has some gang members in it we don't like, go in there. Or I'm looking for a fixer, go in there and see if you can find them. And there's a couple of the buried in the gigs that feel more than gigs. But also in there are a bunch that just feel like random fucking go and fetch quests.
Yeah.
Like the same sort of experience in Assassin's Creed where you're doing the activity not to do the activity. You're doing the activity to clear a fucking marker off your mini-map.
Yeah, to just clear it off and say you did it.
Yes.
And like your reason behind it doesn't fucking matter. Like for example, a lot, and the side gigs do this too. So if you don't know, there's gigs, then there's side gigs, and then there's
NCPD police.
It's like story missions. There's the main content, then there's the side jobs, and then there's the gigs. And the gigs have like a story. Like a fixer will text you a story about like why you're going there and what your reasons for going there are. But it doesn't matter because like I was playing a character who hated the tiger claws. Like, I was backing the Moxes. Like, fuck it, why not? Like, the Tiger Claws are gonna fucking treat women that bad.
Yeah.
Like, the women pretty much fucking raised up and created a gang around the fucking whores to fucking fight these
and
other
sadly,
gangs.
that's the most interesting thing about the gangs is their story.
Yeah,
because
but then, like,
nothing else matters with the gangs. They're just window dressing.
But then you'll get a quest from Fixer about a side gig where you're actually fucking over the Moxes because this Fixer was hired by the Tiger Claws, and therefore now you are hired by the Tiger Claws
and
because
there's no
the Fixers
choice.
hired you. You have no choice in the matter. And there were a lot of moments like that, like
or you could just leave a giant yellow blob on your map.
Yeah, just leave
That's
it.
going to confuse you and allow you to differentiate between it, which may be one that's like you said, like what if you're trying to play someone who's fuck all the Tiger Claws.
Yeah.
I want to fuck over the Tiger Claws.
Well, and that's another thing. That's another layer of immersion that could have been added is
That
like
breaks.
faction.
Yeah.
You could add factions.
Well, there
and
should
that's
be
like
some
actually
sort of system with the gangs where there's a reputation.
Yeah.
Where if you're working for their fixer and you're helping their fixer, then you can actually gain better rep with them and they'll stop attacking you. And they might even show up and help you in fights with other gangs. Or if you decide, fuck the Tiger Claws, I'm going to kill all the Tiger Claws. I'm going to go kill the Tiger Claws fixer. And you have a reputation that decreases so that when you're in their territory, you're shot at on sight. Things like these are so easy to do. And I'm not saying they're easy to do on a technical level. I'm saying these are things that should just be that way.
like
If you're going to have these gangs, if you're going to have street
you're thinking
cred,
about
all of this
RPG.
shit should matter. Street
exactly.
cred
You're
should
thinking
be more.
RPG.
Street cred should be more than just a level up that unlocks access to certain cyber fucking components, cyberware, or adds more clutter to your fucking map.
Yeah.
Because that's what it does. As you complete these, you'd think that you're going to see less on the map. No, you're going to see more. Because as you complete these things, like, and the way that they're presented is so awful. Instead of having, like, I was thinking in Agents of Mayhem, but it's in a lot of games. It's in GTA. There's lots of games that have this sort of system where, okay, you look at your map and there's a quest on your map. You drive up and there's a little icon that you interact with as a player character to initiate the quest. CDPR is like, nah, fuck that. Blow up their cell phone. Blow it up no matter what they're doing. Don't give a shit. If they're in this area on foot, bam. Here's a contact. You are getting contacted by the fixer of this area. They don't matter, by the way. Yeah. The fixers do not fucking matter. It could be one or a dozen. Yeah. It doesn't matter. They are all, except for a few that have a place within this final story of the final part of the main campaign. There's a couple Dakota for the nomads.
And there's even Regina for the cyber psychos, which I thought, well, okay, so she has a purpose, but the cyber psychos storyline just ends. Much like everything in this game.
You kept them all alive? Good. We'll try to do a study
much
on
like Delamain, like all of these quests, it's just done. Now you're dead-ended, and there really is no feeling of accomplishment because there is no rippling effect throughout the story.
The one that really, really let me down was the one involving the new mayor.
Yeah.
Where he's like, you find out that they're like in his house.
Paralysis.
It just felt like they had all these such interesting in that aspect. And those are the ones that are still, even though they end, they're worth doing because they're interesting and fun to play with and talk with those NPCs and discover these sort of little mysteries going on. Like the one with the prisoner who wanted to hang himself. I think his name was James, was it? Probably not. Anyway, but like the stuff with like Judy, the stuff with Pan Am, all those stuff, that stuff gets buried in the same fucking mix.
They're all the same.
And it's like you can sort them in your quest log and see them in your quest log and go to them that way. But still, it just feels like, why not have instead of like having just all of these on the map and you go to a new area, and the fixer automatically contacts you, and you have to go under that like immersion, right? So that means that these fixers are following my location all the time. They know where V is. They're following V. They know that V has now entered their section of town, so they're gonna call V and be like, "Hey, I'm the fixer of this part of town. You go to me if you need jobs, man." Ha ha ha. And it doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. They could be. There's so many in the game that I was like replaying it on the second playthrough, and I was like, I didn't even remember this guy.
Yeah.
The guy that's always in the darkness that has like the purple hat. He's or the purple jumpsuit or something. I'm pulling from memory. It's been a while since I played it. But like I said, they doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. These fixers do not matter. The interesting ones like Padre have it written in things that fundamentally fuck up their character development with V because you shake Padre's fucking hand. Then you drive into Padre's part of town later in the game, and he's like, "Hey V, I'm Padre. You don't know me at all.
This is a formal first-time introduction.
You haven't met me with Jackie. Jackie didn't introduce you to me. You didn't work with me through a cutscene that surmised the entire beginning of our game. Because we can't be fucked. Because you know what we discovered? We discovered that most people who bought The Witcher 3 never beat The Witcher 3. So we're going to play to that part of our audience. You know, the people who don't enjoy our work enough to play all the way through our work.
To get through the end.
We're going to cater to those people and make this campaign much shorter. By taking control of the entire first fucking act and take it away from the player, put it in a cutscene, and then immediately start killing people off from that and try to make the player feel emotional. And I'm not going to say that I didn't feel for Jackie, but that comes down to performance and the way that they made him appear. Like, you know what I was thinking on this second playthrough is when he's holding the chip suitcase when you're hiding behind the TV in Yorinobu's suite, and it's like when Yorinobu starts choking, what was his name? Saburo. He starts choking him out, and like, I just looked over at Jackie and I was like, wow. Just the way he looked while holding it and his face while looking out, like, he just looked so fucking vulnerable, almost like a kid. And I think that was like the major point with Jackie, is they wanted you to understand that he was just like a big kid. He was super naive, like very, very like, you know, he will fuck you up, but if you're his friend, like nothing you can do will ever make him mad at you. That sort of thing. And that, I feel like that, what they were able to convey alone in that short amount of time is miraculous. And what hurts me is to think of how more impactful an already impactful moment could have been if the relationship with Jackie was expanded upon. If the relationship with T-Bug were expanded upon. If the relationship with Dexter Deshawn were expanded upon. These characters are super interesting. They're like, Dexter is an awesome character, but then all of a sudden he's a bastard. And you're like, what the fuck, man? And it's how come you couldn't have had an intro where you start with your street cred, and that's actually the main first part progression of the game, where you're going to these fixers and getting more jobs and make those interesting, make those cool fucking side quests, and then introduce the gang system of the game, where the gangs are factions that you can either work with or destroy at your leisure. You know, work with this, you know. I just feel like that's what's so disappointing, is I feel like that intellectually I was not nearly as challenged as much as while playing The Witcher 3 in that aspect of it, of paying attention to the story and directing its course. I just felt like I was there to watch it.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, and it was compelling, and it was very well written, and the voice actors were all top notch. Cool. I loved Keanu.
I really like the lore notes about the history of like the
building the world
and Arasaka Tower, the wars of the corporations, and then there's like Keanu's Johnny Silverhand was actually a part of those wars down in
like
Mexico.
Like the Rocker Boy, yeah, dude. The Rocker Boy, where he comes back, he's in a band, but he's basically a terrorist against the courts.
And his whole backstory is he was a soldier in the war for corporations against the farmers in Mexico or something, And, like, he saw the corporations pretty much destroy innocent people's way of living for generations.
For greed.
And that's why he became a terrorist, is he was like, fuck them,
well,
fuck
you
the
clash that with
corporations.
someone who's sensitive, an artist, and that's like, he is an artist.
Yeah.
And
that's
so, like,
another
that,
thing
you
is-
bleed into existentialism,
I also wanna
like, to
point
where
out-
he turns into a nihilist. He's an awesome character. Johnny
Oh, yeah.
Silverhand is an awesome fucking character, and Keanu's performance is amazing.
Real quick, before we keep going about Keanu, I want to bring out my last layer of immersion, because this was a big one that I thought of, and it feels like Witcher 3 did this fine enough with the fucking contract boards, and I brought this up to you the other night, where it's like, in that world, what do the boards do? Like, you walk up to them for a job.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay,
It's town notices.
It makes sense in this world that if a peasant from this village needed work done, they'd, put it on a piece of paper, throw it up on a wooden board, you know?
and
somebody will come along, and if they want the job,
and
they can come talk
Geralt's
to me
looking
about
for
it.
work because he's a Witcher. That's a great place to find work, is the town notice board.
Yeah, and it adds a layer of immersion, and it's like, that's how this world operates, And in Cyberpunk, one thing that drives me nuts with the cell phone is, like, the texting and all of that shit, and then, like, on top of all of that, you also have, like, the, when they call you, there's a prompt to answer, but you don't even need to press it, because after a certain amount of time of the phone ringing, it's just going to answer anyway, and they're just going to start talking to you. What would have been cool is and I would say this with the lore notes as well as like the map markers, is you could filter out a lot of these things and make more of the interesting things easier to find. Like with the lore notes, one thing that drove me nuts is I loved reading through all those lore notes, but there were so many freaking points where I would pick up a lore note and I'd read the first sentence and be like, I've already picked this up 3 goddamn times.
I've already read this one.
Yeah.
And then you'd find something you'd read and you'd be like, this isn't interesting at all.
Yeah, exactly. And so an easier way is like filtering that, and especially with like some of the shards that you can hack and things that you interact with for certain objectives. We're in the exact same interface as all of these lore notes.
The inventory is a fucking mess. The note system is a fucking mess. Witcher 3 was like this too, to a degree, but they've streamlined it. And these are things that
can be fixed. But one thing about
the reason you're bringing
phone,
that up is because it comes to the RPG,
the immersion and cell phone. What would have been nice is because it is a modern post-apocalyptic fictional world.
Yeah.
Obviously futuristic. But because there are cell phones and how the technology works is kind of similar to ours, it would be nice if there was like a don't answer, ignore, I don't want to answer this call, I'll check my voicemail later.
And have it be managed better than like, oh, here's a list of every message you've ever gotten from any NPC, here's the call log of every call you've ever, and the thing that bugs me about that, like I said on immersion, is it doesn't even just fuck it up in the aspect of like the phone just blowing up and answering itself and they're now talking to you. It's also the fact that they are calling you without you interacting with them. Like, it shouldn't be that they, like, this is like numero uno fucking game design quest shit. You interact. You go to the quest and accept the quest.
Yes.
The quest doesn't come to you and tell you you're doing it now.
Tell you what to do.
Or if you don't do it, it's now in your log and it's going to clutter up your log.
Yeah.
And you're not going to remember even what the context is later when you come back to finally complete it, because you were in the middle of fucking a main mission, not doing goddamn side quests. And that's the thing, is like, these are things that are like, that's why I say inexcusably bad. I don't want to attack certain things that I think can be fixed. I will briefly mention the crafting system. The fact that the components are so scarce and rare in conjunction with money that these sorts of things, even after 100%ing everything on the game board, all of the objectives possible on screen outside of just running around and looking at how cool Night City is. Mm-hmm. I guess I could go talk to the fixers, They have a prearranged, amount of dialogue lines and, responses, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because they're fucking pointless.
Even though when they call you, they're like, come see me sometime.
Yeah, and then you go there and it's like, oh, two lines, little conversation, cool. They will
I've
never
said-
say anything new.
I've said what I've said, and now you can fuck off for
That's
the rest
all
of the
I
game.
have to say.
You can never see me again.
Or you can, and it won't matter because there's no reason to or not
I will
to.
say the same things
Yeah.
that I said last time.
And I feel like that's why I feel like I will mention that, and I'll mention the fact that even after 100%ing all the content on the board, I couldn't 100% all the content on the board because I was unable to purchase all the vehicles in the game because I just didn't have enough money, even though I didn't buy anything. When I play RPGs, like, I don't buy weapons, I don't buy armor, right? You just don't do that. That's the point of exploration. That's the fucking, that's the carrot at the end of the stick. You don't buy your weapons unless it's from a rare fucking, or it's a crafted thing from a vendor, or it's a rare weapon that is only available from this vendor. There's very few instances where you buy that. You're not buying common gear. You're going to go kill 20 guys and they're all going to drop a gun. Why are you going to buy a common pistol? Go find one. That's the point of exploration. That's the point of combat. That's, the reward for doing all this, stuff. It should be, but it didn't ever feel that way because after doing that and scrapping all white, scrapping all, basically all of the weapons that I got, all of the armor pieces that I got, using all of that stuff to craft Johnny's gear and try to, these iconic gear, they let you bring up its rarity, which increases all the stats. I wanted the legendary Johnny Silverhand's gear, and I was unable to because there weren't enough crafting components in the game for me to use, right? Chubbs found out you can buy them. Chubbs was like, actually, they're available for sale here. I stopped looking at what vendors had because vendors never had anything I wanted except for the cyber dogs.
But then you
Ripper
ran out of
dogs.
money because you were trying to buy all the cars.
Yeah, I didn't have enough money to buy all the cars, despite only spending money on cars.
It's much like the system that I ran into with the body build, where, in order to max out your individual skill, because it kind of works like Oblivion, where as you punch some things, you level up your blunt weapons, right? Or as you use pistols, you level up
and all that
handguns.
stuff's great, but the balancing feels off.
But then
I
it's
really like how they did that. Just really quickly,
Right.
I really like how they did that, where you have these individual skills trees. You put points in like special, and then within that, as you use them, like pistols, things like that, you can also get perks into each one of those trees that also make it better. And then by actually practical usage of the skill in combat in the world, you're leveling that up, which will give you perk points, other rewards. I really like the way all that works, but like you're saying, the balance is fucking off.
Well, that's the thing, is I was just pointing this out as an
Sounds really
example
good
of
on
another
paper.
broken system, like your
And
cars,
there's a lot of them.
your money, your crafting.
And it's things
you're
that we
in
don't
order
want
to
to
level
spend
up.
a whole bunch of time on because these are things, but things
It's
that are
like
inexcusably bad.
It's like, in order to level up your body, you have to be sprinting around or using your stamina. But then if you're going a fist brawler build, you're not using half as much as your stamina as you should. So the only way to level up your brawler build is to use stamina. But if you go a brawler build, you're not going to use that
reduces the
stamina.
amount of stamina used.
So
yeah.
you're not leveling it up. I went like a full-on brawler build, and by the end of the game at max level, I was like level 4 in body build.
Yeah.
Just because
It didn't work.
didn't work that way. You know what I mean?
And it's one of those things that, again, it's broken, but it's something that can be fixed. That's a numbers issue.
Yes.
They could lower the amount of, sprinting needed.
A lot of that shit.
Or just remove the stamina usage requirement at all for that and just make it distance traveled.
Yeah.
So if you travel around on foot, inevitably that skill is going to go up. Those are sorts of things, but you can't. And here's the thing is, I believe you can. That's why this is an impressions video and not a review video. Because I truly believe that you can salvage a lot of the problems with this game. The stunted intro, I don't think you can fix. I think you'd have to add a layer of a DLC that completely revamps the game and gives the player the freedom to play around, meet Jackie, become Jackie's friend sincerely through an emotional bond built through gameplay, through doing jobs for fixers, then meeting Dexter Deshawn and building a trust with Dexter Deshawn to the point where his betrayal has meaning. Because as it was, I wasn't surprised at all. I was just like, yeah, I figured. Like, we watched Yorinobu kill fucking
So Saburo.
Saburo. I always forget his dad's name.
It's because such a weird
yeah.
name. It's like Saburo, Saburo.
Yeah. So like, but that's the thing is like you watch that, it's like, so it's not really, and it's like you hardly know the guy.
Yeah.
And in fact, you could have plotted to fuck him over with the what's the woman character that you go and meet
Evelyn.
with? Evelyn, who gets you involved in the job to begin with, Evelyn. And like you could have actually worked towards fucking him over, and none of that matters.
No.
Like none of that matters
At all. And that's the thing about Cyberpunk.
The intro is just like,
I'd say
I don't think you could fix that unless you revamped it. And but I feel like you could fix street cred and fixers.
Oh yeah.
I feel like you could rework those gigs so they don't camouflage the interesting shit. I mean, the fact that buying a car on the minimap has the same importance as like a side mission with a fucking character that
with
leads,
a storyline
leads to a romance. That leads to a romance option. They both have the same marker. The fuck are you smoking over there? And that's what's disappointing is it says you know that they understand that there needs to be a distinction between things because all the police scanner event things are fucking color-coded blue and have an entirely different symbol on the map.
Mm-hmm.
But the cars and the fucking side quests involved, and that's why I couldn't replay this game again. I have no desire to replay this game. And what's unfortunate, that feels unfortunate to me because, like I was saying earlier about the developer, I can't remember his name, but he's that guy who was like drunk on stage. He got a lot of notoriety around E3 in that aspect. He was selling that Prison Break game or whatever. But that guy, I was thinking about that about One and Done, and I'm like, it's not necessarily such a bad thing. There's a place for games like that. I can understand a place. I didn't think the people who made Witcher 3 would be the people who leaned more into that side.
Yeah.
Where it's like, when I finished The Witcher 3, I immediately wanted to replay it. Then I finished it again and I wanted to replay it again. And then I wanted to replay it again. And I'm on like 7 playthroughs now. And every single one of them has been just as good as the fucking last. And I did every single bit of story content in the game. Every single playthrough. And it was all worth it. And you know what's sad? Is that I don't want to do that again with Cyberpunk 2077. I didn't want to play it again. I wanted to play it again.
Where's your incentive? You've seen all the endings.
I wanted to play it again because I wanted to get like footage and do a real like in-depth thing, and I started to take notes on things, and I just started the farther along I got, and the more of those yellow markers I started to see, and I chipped away at doing that for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I was like, I cannot do this.
Yeah.
I know where this experience is going. They gave me a quick save at the end, so I experienced all of the endings except for one. I don't want to do it again for that one ending. And it's sad because, like, they're talking about they want to make it shorter. They want to make it smaller because people, and it's like, that's fine. But the thing about that is, like, Outer Worlds was really small comparatively to a game like The Witcher 3, to a game like even Fallout 4. Comparatively really small, but it felt dense. It felt like there was a lot of different story things going on that opened up different playthroughs. If you were interested in the world and wanted to see how this, corporation or this company or whatever, this character played out, if you involved with them, if your involvement with them went something like this time, or something like that next time. You can do this. You can make a shorter, smaller game, but dense with fucking the RPG shit. The shit that matters. You can make it accessible by having an easy combat option. You can make it accessible by streamlining the skill system and making it simpler on a level where a not as intelligent person would be able to follow it as someone who's like a hardcore like D&D player or someone like that who has a lot of experience with board games, RPG video games, really hardcore stuff, and understands numbers, things like that. You can balance it out so that both people can enjoy that system, right? You can. And I feel like what's disappointing is that I didn't expect CDPR to be the ones who leaned into this sort of like safer thing. This intro that is built for people who could just be like for games journos. So they can give them the first 4 hours of play on PC only, of course, and let them play that. And then at that point they're, oh, this is great. I experienced all of this cool stuff and I've seen Night City and I worked with Jackie, and I'm sure it ended around the time that you watch Yorinobu kill Saburo, right? I'm sure it ended around the same time, this 4 hour version that these media people were talking about before release. And of course they loved it because it's for people with short attention spans. You don't need to meet Jackie. We've done it for you. Here he is. Oh, you're a nomad? Well, then he's going to be on the same job. He's going to be your contact in Night City and you're going to become best friends. Oh, you're a street kid? Well, he's going to fuck you over the car you're trying to steal, but then you're going to make it away and you're going to be best friends. Oh, you're a corpo? Well, you and him are already best friends. He's the friend you call when you have a bad day at work and things aren't going your way. It's like, it's just, I don't know, dude. It just, that aspect of it, they let me down there. And another thing that I feel like we need to talk about before we're done, because we wanted to talk about the things that were inexcusably poor, and that though I feel like those things are where it's like you really start to see what kind of direction they're going. And there's talk that Keanu was brought on a little later in development. Maybe some things in the main narrative were shifted around to fit him in. And the thing about that is if that's the case, then that's fine. But you should have, I'm hoping that they have a contingency plan, because unlike PC fucking Gamer, where you want to talk about worst takes in the world, PC Gamer wrote an article that basically said Cyberpunk or CD Projekt Red should pack up their bags and leave Cyberpunk where it is. Just let it die and move on to a new game. Don't even fix it. Yeah, because fuck everyone who bought it. Fuck everyone who believed in you. Fuck all of us, right? Fuck us. Don't fix it. Don't do anything to it. Just move on. Like, fuck you, PC Gamer. It's inexcusable what they did. And this is where I would say you're either in two camps about this. And if you're in either of these two camps, you can fuck off. You're either in the camp that Cyberpunk 2077 is the perfect game. The developers are blameless. They've done nothing wrong. And it's the unreal expectations of the fucking consumers that really was the real problem with this game. Because the game is flawless in your opinion, and everyone else has their head up their ass.
Everyone else just got overhyped.
Yeah. Or if you're in the camp that says, fuck CD Projekt Red, fuck this game, they should just abandon it, it's dead, let it go.
It's not an RPG.
It's not an RPG. It's the illusion of choice in every aspect. It's the most illusion of choice, I would say, of their properties.
I would say that is an actual good statement, illusion of choice with this game. But does that mean that it's not an RPG? If you are looking at every other... Destiny 2 gets the RPG tag.
Yeah, but that's the thing. People who are saying that, fuck them. Those two camps. Now let's have the nuanced discussion. The game is not all bad. There's a lot of good in it. There's a lot of realized potential, but unfortunately there's far more unrealized potential in Cyberpunk 2077. There's the fact that they marketed this game one way and had E3 builds for this game that functioned one way that were not intended to be in the final product of the game. It's unfucking excusable that they released this on console and sold this to people and had pre-orders available for this when you see the launch edition of this on PlayStation 4. And you know what? I've heard people say on Twitter and in a lot of reviewers who are like very pro Cyberpunk, The Witcher 3 wasn't perfect on release either. The fucking Cyberpunk 2077 on release on consoles is incomparable to the problems The Witcher 3 had. You can talk about the save file issue that it had on Xbox One, and you can talk about some fucking bugs and errors with quests and fucking glitches with graphics and things like that. But don't come to me and tell me it's anywhere in the same fucking ballpark as the release of Cyberpunk 2077. And to try to prop that up as a defense, oh, well, look at this game that also had problems and didn't function correctly on release. Look at this game that also fucking functioned improperly. Look at this game that they released and fucking lied about too. It's like, who cares? We're not talking about those other products. We're not talking about The Witcher 3. We're talking about Cyberpunk 2077. And Cyberpunk 2077 released in a state so poor that Sony pulled it from their store. The people who are selling Life of Black Tiger pulled Cyberpunk 2077 from their store. It's inexcusable that they gave out reviews for PC only and then told those reviewers that they couldn't use their own footage because the thing was not optimized for several different builds. It was optimized for the highest end AMD card you could get your hands on, and that's it. Right? Or the highest end NVIDIA card, but even there I heard there were a lot of issues they had, which is funny considering it has graphical options that are only available if you have a NVIDIA card, which my previous card was, which was well within the system requirements for this fucking game, that couldn't run more than fucking 20 to 30 frames a second with shit as fuck potato mode looking graphics. It's inexcusable. It's indefensible. And this company should face our harsh criticism at those fucking those things that we all should adamantly be against. Not just as gamers, as fucking consumers of any media. Can you imagine you go to the movie and then you're watching it and it has killer ass special effects like 50% of the time, and then the other half of the time it's wireframe models? Like the building blocks of good CG, and they're just using it like whatever, fuck it. You know, when it comes out on VHS, it'll fucking have them in there. Or VHS, wow. When it comes out on DVD, it'll all
when
be
it comes
there.
out on Blu-ray.
When it comes out on Laserdisc, just you fucking wait.
When it comes out on demand,
Laserdisc
digital,
will kill it all.
fucking digital.
That's the thing. What I'm saying is you wouldn't accept that, and you shouldn't accept that. No one should accept that. And you shouldn't defend that by saying, oh, well, this other company lied. This other company released a game that wasn't functional and made a shitload of fucking money off of it. Off of lies. Because that's the thing, in many ways, and I've heard this compared to the No Man's Sky. And the thing about that is there are a lot of similarities. You have the developers who are making claims about a product, and then the product coming out and it being completely different or underwhelming or almost unfunctional. In No Man's Sky case, it was PC that was barely functional on release. Should not have been sold. $60, get the fuck out of here. Should not have been called a released game. Should have just simply said this is early access. And that's the thing. If they want to come out and say we're releasing it, but keep in mind, this is early access. We have a lot of work to do, which they clearly do, since the last patch they did was like 434 some odd goddamn bug fixes and performance fixes, right? It's clearly still in early access. It's a live service game. If you don't have access to the internet and you can't download all of these updates, you're fucked. DRM free. No. And that's what's so disappointing. That's what's disheartening. And you can see that they could easily go, there could be a fork here. They could, like No Man's Sky, fix the game. And I would say that this is worse. Speaking upon that, this is fucking worse. This isn't a small developer whose previous project is a mobile phone game, okay? This isn't an overexcited developer talking about the project that really makes him happy and excited, surrounded by a bunch of fucking bottom-feeding journalist scum who are all about hype and excitement, and then the reactionary terrorism that follows when they decide to, oh, the online pulse understands that we're full of shit, so we better jump on board with everything they're saying now, because if we don't, we'll seem inauthentic. And dumb people actually believe that they're authentic. And that's what's so fucking entertaining to me, is that you can't see right through that paper facade. But those are the things you can talk about when you talk about No Man's Sky. You can put forth a defense of, he did want to have all this stuff in. Flood in the building, size and scope. And at the end of the fucking day, no one except for Sean Murray is going to know the extent of the malicious nature of those lies. Whether they were just lighthearted excitement or purposeful lies told in order to make a giant amount of money really fucking fast. But either way, he stuck there, he stayed with that game, and he expanded upon it and built up all the things that people already loved about it, refined them, made them better, added all this, most of the stuff that he had wanted to, that he said was going to be in it and couldn't put in it, added most of that stuff to this point. The reason I would say this is fucking worse, this isn't a one-time mobile app developer that is comprised of a few people. This is a corporation that is publicly traded and funded. And they lied. They fucking had teams dedicated to working on false fucking gameplay footage to help sell the game. Just like Sean Murray did, but in that case, it's almost as if, what if they were trying, they believed they could expand upon that and make that, you know? It's like, that's the thing, is like, I feel like this is worse. Because there's almost no defense. You can't say that they didn't allow console, releases because they were overexcited about their project. No, they didn't allow console fucking review codes because the game didn't run on console. They didn't want people on the console to know that the game was going to be a massive pile of shit, because that would mean a lot of refunds on the fucking pre-orders. And that's another thing. Stop pre-ordering shit. Me and Chubbs bought this game day one. We played it at the same fucking goddamn time all of you motherfuckers did. But the difference is that we waited until there was something tangible that we would get for our fucking coin. Because we're not fucking idiots. Give me a fucking $1 million right now and I'll give you a game in 20 years. How does that sound? No, you don't do that because it's dumb. Because if you give me $1 million, odds are I'm going to Star Citizen your ass and bleed you for the next 20 more. Because now I've made $1 million for the promise of something. Not even something, just the promise of something. Give me all your money. And that's why you end up with shit like this. Is because pre-orders, because they tell the developers, you're going to get it running at this point in time, or it's shipping anyway. We don't fucking care. We're not going to let our stock prices be hurt. And then you hurt your reputation as a company. You hurt your reputation with me, who is constantly. Why isn't CDPR the example of ways to do things? What is the incentive of CDPR to go out of their way with The Witcher 3 and do all of this when someone else can half-ass it, make a linear fucking story that never changes, and get praised infinitely more? Make infinitely more money. Have microtransactions introduced into their RPG and make money off of suckers trying to skip the grind of the fucking, unrealistic numbers that we put into the game for the express purpose of putting them in the store to buy the currency and experience points that we only allow them to get so much to get. And these dumb idiots don't realize that it's all the wizard behind the curtain, pulling the fucking strings, fucking with their heads. No, they give them the money because they're impatient. They don't have time to play a game like The Witcher 3. It's too big. It's too long. It's too complicated. So dumb it down. Next game you come out with CDPR, don't even do what you did here. Just completely half-ass it. Because, you tried to make an intricate skill system and it's imbalanced. I will take that 100% over I'll take all the imbalance with all the fucking skill systems of a fucking intricate skill system over any of that other shit any day. That one and done unlock all by the time you're done. Max level, you have everything available. There is no builds. There is one build. You are a god. And that's it's disheartening to me, and that's why I'm not calling this a review. I don't feel like we could review the game.
No. No. You
Still
can't.
in development. And I'm hoping that they stick with it and they actually, because like I said, there's a lot of realized potential, and I feel like that's what sucks the most is that you see all of these things that are so interesting, and like you get excited about street cred when you first discover it, but then you realize all it is just more optional side stuff that really has nothing to do with anything, and then it lets you unlock some new cyberware that really, once you're built at the end of the day, will is arbitrary number increase on a stat. And it's just sad. It doesn't feel like people who wanted to impress me.
Yeah.
They wanted me to feel immersed. And like some of it does. Some of it really does. But as a whole, it almost feels directionless outside of that main campaign. It almost feels like that was the focus. That was where everything went into. Pan Am, Judy, these characters solid as fuck. Evelyn, the peripheral characters that you'll run into that are like dirtbags, like the guy who owns the club that Evelyn worked at who raped her. And you get to kill him with Judy and get that revenge for her. That cool, good shit. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of it. That's why, I mean, at the end of the day, I'd still recommend this game. I'd say if you have a platform that will run it and run it well, and you know that for sure, get it. Because once I got the performance going, I fell in love with this game. Then I completed it, and sadly I fell out of love with it. Because the most memorable part of the experience was the story, and the story is buried behind a bunch of very meaningless, very lazily put together side objectives that even if you do with a mind of 100%ing everything, you'll still not be able to 100% everything because you won't be able to buy all the cars that are for sale on the map. So, and that sort of feeling of just like, fine, I was just like, remember I was in the very tail end of them. I'm like, I'm almost fucking done, bro. Like, I got this. Because I thought those police scanner missions were repopulated the map. Like, you would do one, and then later another one would go. I thought they were random live activity to keep you playing the game. There's nothing like that. At the end of the game, when you complete everything, there's nothing going on.
The most
Nothing.
population, the entire population in the entire Night City, and nobody's got a single fucking job for you.
Nobody's got a single job for fucking V.
Nobody's got cash for you. You've saved us.
And it's just like, you could just go explore, I guess, but what's the point? What's the point out of just the act of exploring and hoping to find, a chest here and there with, it's just, it feels like at the end of the day, I probably won't play it again until I see some meaningful story update content. And the reason that that's sad to me is because after replaying this game, I started a playthrough of The Witcher 3, and I replayed The Witcher 3. I didn't do Blood and Wine, and I did a little bit of the Hearts of Stone, but I had to play through The Witcher 3 again. This game didn't make me want to play it again. It made me want to play their previous game again. Because that's the experience that I want. And I feel like there's a place for those Assassin's Creed Odysseys. There's a place for those God of War Sony exclusives. Horizon Zero Dawn. There's a place for those. I'm fine that they exist. Some of them I enjoy. But I enjoy that people enjoy them. But what bothers me is I feel like the things that I enjoy, they're dumbing them down and they're making them worse because majority of people like the cheap one-time experience, the contrived emotional things, the flashy images and unearned fucking revenge stories that end in nothing. I feel like that's what people like. They want a safe experience. Like, they want Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League. That's the good movie. Right? And that's what's sad is It's like, I'm not going to dispute that that isn't the better version of that movie, but it's still crap. And like, to like it is fine, but to not acknowledge that it's crap is silly. To be seriously telling, like, putting up, saying that Rotten Tomatoes should be taken down because they're unfair to DC movies. Like, dude, you like it, that's fine. Don't be willfully stupid. Alright? Like, it would be as if I got upset if people talk shit on, like, I don't even know. Something I enjoy things that are bad, I promise you. I enjoy music that is bad. I enjoy things that are bad. That I could say, this is such a trashy fucking movie. But damn is it fun. And this is a shitty fucking game. But it was super entertaining to play through. And it's like, that's the thing, is like, I can make 100 reasons why a game like Horizon Zero Dawn is boring and impossibly slow and just at the end of the day a very safe linear experience. But I can also make a case for how Horizon Zero Dawn has one of the most compelling worlds I've ever been able to envision, been able to play through. One of the very compelling stories and main protagonist that I've ever experienced in a game, whose lineage is interesting, and when you find out about it, is an incredible plot twist. It's just disappointing that it's always the same. But at the same time, it's like, these are the things. Like, I can make an argument for how Cyberpunk 2077 met expectations I had for it. And I could make argument about how Cyberpunk 2077 failed every expectation I had for it. And at the end of the day, I think it's all about you. How do you feel? But let's not pretend that this company didn't do the gamers who believed in them and their fans fucking dirty. Because that's goddamn dangerous. That's how you turn into a blind fanboy that fights for the brand and only the brand, and anyone who betrays the brand must be spit upon and talked down to. It's okay to love something that a company did and admit that they also fucked over a lot of people. That they half-assed a lot of the fucking things in the game and threw out an unfinished early access games as a service video game, being hypocrites when they promote a DRM-free software store. Like, let's not act like this isn't the reality of what they did. They fucked people over. And they did it on purpose. And they did it for money. They are no better than anyone else in this fucking industry who has lied and done it on purpose to make money and fuck people over. Fucking hucksters. Fuck yourselves. You have a long way to go, CDPR. You've started down the right path with these patches and fixes and performance fixes. You've started down the wrong path, but it's a long fucking road to get you back in my esteem in the same way that you were after I played The Witcher 3. You have hurt your goodwill with me. Having done that,
oh yeah,
it's fucking inexcusable.
mm-hmm.
But
And I'd just like to finish up my thoughts with, once again, like you just said, Horizon Zero Dawn, Assassin's Creed, fucking Far Cry.
yeah,
So many of these games. There is a place for them. But what I'm saying is they should have a different title.
yeah,
They should be in a completely different genre. Games like Horizon Zero Dawn and God of War, I feel like are story-focused adventure games.
Well, it's also, there's action RPG and then
Once again, like
CRPG.
yes, but then once again, like the one and done games, I'm fine with it. I recommended Assassin's Creed Origins because it took me a lot of time to play. It ate up a huge majority of the time playing it. I enjoyed every instance in the game, and I got to experience a unique fucking world that I'm never gonna go to in the real world. Like, I'm never gonna go to Egypt, let alone Egypt back in the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
back in the
that's
heyday.
and so like I'm not against those things, but what I'm saying is like RPG universally have replayability. Now, not just like fucking Outriders where it's like replay the same 20-hour campaign on a loop, kind of
but
like
with
Diablo,
a different character, yeah, but
Destiny.
with a different class, yeah.
Yeah, you know, a lot of these games do it. I'm talking about replayability, and you actively feel like you are a huge part of the experience.
Like you're shaping the narrative. The narrative doesn't exist despite you.
Yeah, like you shape how it shakes out. You can talk to people, whether you talk to them or not, can shake things out differently. Instead of games like Horizon Zero Dawn, where you can talk to people, there are options of talking with people
Side
and
quests.
asking people questions, but it's just like optional information,
Yeah.
and the game's happening whether or not you ask them
Yeah.
about that.
And
You
the
know
choices,
what I mean?
and it's maybe things down the line where you'll run into a character you saved or something like that. Usually in these games, it's never a meaningful thing.
Yeah.
It's never the difference between like you were saying in Kaer Morhen with like the crazy ways Kira Metz alone can play out.
All
but
of
on
those,
top of her,
there's a bunch of NPCs.
Oh, what's his name? The Kingslayer from Witcher 2. Letho of Gullet. There's him. His story can play out completely different.
Oh yeah.
There's all sorts of,
and why I say replayability is because like not just you feel like you're an active part of the experience, but you have the freedom to be who you want to be in the game.
Yeah.
Because the inception of RPG, the role-playing games genre, is Dungeons and Dragons, where you would create a dwarf, paladin, or an elf wizard, or like a freaking halfling
with
rogue.
With a moral inclination.
Exactly.
And yes.
With a whole wide variety of different inclinations, from like chaotic neutral to just chaotic evil to chaotic good. And then like everything in between, all the different neutral and everything, and it's like, so you feel like you as a person and who you want to be within the game matters. Yeah. All the way down to the ideals of the character you're creating, to are you a good character, are you a bad character, are you a psychopath, do you like to thief, do you like to kill? Like, these are things that like go into a great RPG.
And they're absent from The Witcher 3. Just saying this, but they're not. And here's why I heard Strategy, he's a pretty good reviewer. He was talking about how CD Projekt Red didn't give you a new character that you could just like blank slate. It's V. You're playing as V, and it's the same thing as The Witcher 3. And in this aspect, I totally agree with him, because the difference between a game like, let's say Fallout, not even Fallout 3 does it perfectly, but Skyrim with the modified alternate start game, where you can just start as whatever, right. What I mean? And even then, it doesn't help that the main narrative eventually leads you into becoming the Dragonborn, you know what I mean? Mm. But like an RPG like Dungeons and Dragons, where it's like you are not only creating your character's class and stats, you're also creating your character's backstory. Where are they from? What have they done? Or what are their, heritage? Who are their parents? All that is a blank slate for the player to write. Witcher is not like that. The Witcher is, you are Geralt, you are a Witcher, this is how Witchers are. But then within that, they let the player play around with Geralt's interaction within the world. And in any way, it would make sense, unless you're a hardcore lore dude, where you're like, Geralt would never help a fucking dude for free. But it's like, my Geralt did.
Well, that's the RPG mechanics, is being an evil Geralt, or being a good Geralt, or kill that monster, or save that monster.
I feel like they did that here. But way less. Way less. Where you can kind of direct V in a certain way where he or she is inclined to be more dick or a bitch or nicer, nice guy, nice girl, like polite, impolite. There's these moments that exist, but they don't feel like there's ever a far-reaching consequence for being one way or the other. It feels almost as dumbed down as, and I say almost, but almost as dumbed down as Fallout 4's like sarcastic, nice questioning. where it's like those three
One
categories.
of 1 of 4.
Yep.
Pick.
It's going to be one of these three things, and then your character is going to say whatever the fuck they want to
Nice,
say.
inquisitive, sarcastic,
Yeah.
or asshole.
Yep. And that's why I worry about it, is because I worry that instead of games coming out and trying to emulate things from The Witcher 3, like romance options, like, because let's face it, like, I feel like Assassin's Creed leaned hard in the direction of like a Witcher. It felt more like a Witcher like people were saying at the time. I read several articles by several of these fucking publications where it's like Assassin's Creed Origins is kind of a Souls like. It's not, but I was thinking it was more of like The Witcher because you had it lean more heavily into the RPG mechanics that were already there. But now you have like the exploration, like there was like you used that to find things on the map that you were looking for. There was like blood trails and shit you followed. There were things that I was like, wow, they're kind of leaning into that. It's not there yet. But then in Odyssey, they add romance options, they add certain things, but it's still not there. It's still like dumbed down, safe, the safest you can be while still like leaning into things. But what's so disheartening to me is that instead of companies trying to lean more into CD Projekt Red's lane, we now have CD Projekt Red leaning into their lane.
Yeah.
With these police scanner missions and shit like that to justify the fact that your story's only like 20 hours long.
Yeah.
Because everything else is filler.
Resembling like a more in-depth Ubisoft game.
Yep. That's what it feels like.
Like it's like a notch
it's
above
way
those.
more hardcore. It's like a way hardcore.
It's not
Ubisoft
one
game.
notch. It's a few notches above
Several.
those. It's several notches, but it feels like those.
It's not even that it feels like. If this was made by Ubisoft, I'd be praising it.
Yeah.
But this isn't made by them. This is made by CDPR. And they told me what to expect several times when they said, if you've played The Witcher 3, you know what to expect from us.
Yes.
And they fucking lied. They lied to me. They lied to you. They lied to everybody. And that's unfucking forgivable. Not entirely. I'll forgive them. They gotta make it right though. They gotta make those lies real. They gotta make this what it was supposed to be. What it was promised to be. An in-depth representation of the tabletop RPG of the titular, the namesake. You said it was going to be like that. I've done some research. Fucking lies. This is bare bones compared to that. And that's what I mean is like, and if you're gonna come at me with like, well, they had to release it and all games release shitty because, you gotta release a game shitty because that's just the way it is now. It's like, no, that's not the way it is. I don't accept
in your head, but you live in a shitty world.
Oh, yeah. I want to live in a world where a game comes out and I can forgive all the bugs because the rest of it's so good. And like, I couldn't even play Cyberpunk 2077 for like 2 months. Because I had to save up and fucking consolidate shit and get myself a card upgrade. In order to play it.
Just to get it running.
So, and then there's still bug fixes going on. Nothing really meaty. They fixed the police popping in. They're trying to make that, and it's like, cool. But why is that? And that's another thing, is why even have a wanted system? Yeah. Other than to say you have a wanted system. It does nothing.
At all.
It does nothing.
Why have street cred when
yeah.
mercs aren't going to come after you?
Yeah, there's no reason to have street cred other than, hey, I have high street cred
Like,
now.
maybe because you have high street cred, other mercenaries are going to try to make a name for themselves by killing you.
Fuck, Assassin's Creed Odyssey had that.
Exactly.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey had that. Assassin's Creed had a better fucking system than Cyberpunk 2077.
Mm-hmm.
Good game. But that's probably it for me. I'm pretty burnt out on it. Honestly, I'm going to move on. We're going to move on to other things. I know that a lot of you wanted to hear from us about this, and that's really why I wanted to play it again, because I really wanted to give you guys an in-depth look. But I feel like at the end of the day, I would recommend this game if you have the hardware to play it, to run it. If you don't have the hardware, stay away. If you're on console, don't buy it. Don't give this game your money. This company does not deserve your money. And they lied about system requirements. I looked up system requirements the day before I bought this fucking game when I heard it was having hardware issues or saw it was having issues on people's game getting it to run. I heard that, so I specifically went to this goddamn company's website and looked at the requirements that this fucking company put forth for this game. And my system was perfectly over the limit of what was needed to run this game at a fucking media, or it said high settings at 60 frames per second at 1080p. They fucking lied to me. I based my research as a consumer on the information that the company selling me a product wanted me to buy it, and that was my mistake. Fuck them for lying. Fuck them for having the reputation to the point where me, one of the most jaded motherfuckers in the world with this industry, frankly sick of them and their excuses, and the fanboys that dismiss their bad behavior. Sick of it completely. I believed their lies. I bought their game. I was convinced that I had to do something with the settings to optimize it and that it would run good because this company told me that my system would run it good. They lied. They lied to people who they sold it to on the PS4 and Xbox. Fuck them for that. And that's like where I'll leave it is I feel like just at the end of the day, like fuck them for the lies.
Mm-hmm.
Like ultimately above all else, fuck them for becoming just another faceless organization out to fucking rape my wallet. Fuck them. They'll be delegated to the same position that Gearbox was delegated to after Battleborn. And until they fucking come out and they fix this and add some meat onto these bones and make it a more significant RPG experience like The Witcher 3, because that's what they promised, fix the balance on the fucking in-game economy with components and money, fix the fucking crafting where I can only do one of these components at a time and I have to hold a button prompt for several seconds and there isn't a craft all option. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you fucking out of your mind? How amateur are you that there isn't a craft all button? Jesus fuck. Or how rushed is this product? Either way, they lied. They got a long way to go to make it up to me.
Oh, yeah.
But overall, like I said, I mean, I want to leave it with one, like, because I kind of went at them, but it's like, you need to. But you also need to talk about the good, because there is a lot of good. And I'd say that the ending to this game hit me. There was one ending in particular, I won't go into it too much, but it involved Johnny Silverhand, but I didn't see Johnny Silverhand. I saw Keanu, and I felt incredibly mortal all of a sudden, and I was very cognizant of the thought that I'm going to fucking die someday, and it cut through everything. And there was a moment that I had looking at one of my childhood heroes fade away into digital immortality that wrecked me so hard. And that moment hit me harder than any of these fucking cheap moves made by other developers to try to make, character sacrifices hit the player, but really they never land because it's just poor writing. And it I don't even know if that was the intended reaction, that they wanted me to have that reaction, but I had that reaction, and for that alone I would recommend it. I would recommend it, but I would say, like, don't waste your time doing this side shit. And what's so sad is that I would say that, but I would also say take the time to find some of the side shit. But the problem is that there's no way to sift through it. the uninteresting fetch
Aside
quests.
from spoiling and googling a
Yeah,
guide,
yeah.
you will not find the side missions
That-
with a
yeah.
story, with characters, with interesting building with the world.
It's all just buried under
It's buried
piles and
behind
piles
the-
of garbage.
Hey, you're at a location. Fixer's texting you. Gang hired me to hire you. Go do this thing for them. Thanks.
I'll send you some credits, but never enough to buy all the cars on the map. Because
And
we
those-
have 800 cars for sale.
All the cars
even though
share the
90%
same
of
icon.
them feel the same way.
All of them. They all are yellow.
Stare pretty much the same way, play the same way, but here's 800 of them, and it's that irritated me to no end. I'm the type of guy I want to get rid of all of those. Especially in a game I care about, and that's why like a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey I could walk away from without doing that. And Cyberpunk 2077, it got there. I was not going to do those police scanners. Then I looked at how many components I had, I looked at how much money I had, and I looked at how many cars I still had to buy, and I went, I don't think those fucking idiots put enough money in here through doing all of this boring ass side content to buy all these cars. I don't think these idiots put enough fucking components in this game from just straight scrapping 100% of the loot that I got from fucking doing all of those side objectives. I don't think they put enough fucking crafting components in here for me to get this iconic gear maxed out. And I couldn't even do the pistol. I couldn't upgrade the pistol once. All of my components went to just the armor. And I'm like, what in the fuck, dude? And I remembered I was finishing it, and I'm like, they didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, I have done the numbers now at this point. I have this many left, and unless they give me like a certain 100,000 a piece, I'm not going to be able to buy all these cars, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to buy them all. It's impossible.
They didn't have enough jobs to complete everything in the game.
No, but there were so many. That was the thing, is it's not like there weren't enough jobs. There were too many jobs.
Well, that's the thing.
And then at the end of the
there's
day,
not enough
even those
money.
boring ass jobs.
But then is there not enough money? Because there's a lot of points in the game where you're burning money on cyberware or
Yeah.
quests where you gotta like.
Well, that
give
was
money
like I
to
said, that's
rogue.
all I spent money on was cars and upgraded cyberware.
Yeah.
That was it. That was it. I didn't spend, and in instances where you gotta like pay Vic back, or
Pay rogue.
you gotta pay Rogue, or you gotta give people money for the main quest. That of course I obviously did, but other than that, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing but cars and upgraded cyberware, and I still didn't have enough after 100%ing all these boring police scanner shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like the gigs are more interesting than that, but they're still sub fucking par coming from this company.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm probably done.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is like I'm done with this game. Like I view it as the same way I do Horizon Zero Dawn. There's a difference, and that is that I feel like even after Horizon Zero Dawn added that DLC, I had a chance to play that DLC and that game through again, and I didn't. I couldn't do it. I started it and I just couldn't. It was New Game Plus and everything, and I was just like, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've already done this, and it just like when you've already done that sort of game where it's like here's all these objective markers on your map, and you go through and you studiously track down each one and clear it off the map and do the whole region, and it feels good to look at the map and see all those markers gone. Like there's a real feeling of accomplishment. But once you do it, you're like, yeah, but really all I was doing was going here, taking out these guys. Going here, stealing this. Going here, collecting that. And it's like, at the end, and that's how Cyberpunk felt. It's like, replaying it, I can't conceive of myself playing it right now. But once they add some content, hopefully rework things in the game so that there's more actual meat to it, color code these fucking gigs out of the fucking same thing. Color code the car icons out so that on my next playthrough I don't have to sift through a bunch of shit and get my journal loaded down with a bunch of gigs because I'm exploring to figure out if it's a gig with an NPC quest line or just a go in here and steal this thing, right? color code all that shit, maybe I'll come back and play it. That's why I'm saying I feel differently about it than I do Horizon Zero Dawn, because I feel like there's an edge of there's things that they could do that could definitely entice me to play it again. But right now, that like bug fixes aren't going to entice me.
No.
I already played through the game with all these bugs and I beat it, so it doesn't matter anymore. You fucked up. You fucked up because my first game experience was littered with fucking bugs and errors and issues and imbalanced crafting, imbalanced leveling system, imbalanced currency system. You didn't fix that. And you sold me a game and said it was released. You fucked up. I didn't fuck up. There's nothing I have to replay. I played the damn thing on release. So I got a taste of the experience. That's the experience you sold me. And that's on you. And that bitter taste in my mouth, that's on you. And that's directed towards you, CD Projekt Red. You let me down. Like I can't even find fucking words for. Broke my fucking heart with this maneuver. Don't even give a fuck about pretty much anyone now. You were one of the last bastions of hope that I had to be delivered a hardcore RPG experience. And it's like, there's still developers on PC that are giving them to you. You know, there's Divinity, the developer of Divinity. There's a lot that are still doing this. There's a lot of games that are coming out that you can find that are still this. But it's like, not that are as mainstream. Like, people know what The Witcher is. It's a Netflix show. Like, people know it's a video game. That is like a hardcore RPG experience. Having people be able to look at that and play that in the amount that people have, and it's praised. Who cares if people didn't finish it? They bought it and they left it a positive review. What the fuck is the issue if they didn't finish it? Why make the next game shorter? Stun it down to 20 hours. Fuck, dude. But yeah, I loved a lot of this game, but ultimately what sucks is just that I had different expectations for it, and those expectations came directly from the developer of the fucking game. It came from their reputation, it came from their prior work, and it's all on them. Like, I didn't, make shit up in my head here. I didn't make shit up in my head about what kind of game this was going to be. I was believing every single thing that they said that this game would be because I fucking saw The Witcher 3. I believe they could have pulled it off. They didn't. I don't know why. You know, we could talk about that all day, but really at the end of the day, what's the point? They didn't.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter why.
It just is.
It is the reality.
It is the way it is.
They lied to make money.
And now we have to live on this fucking earth, in this universe. I want to go to the alternate dimension where Cyberpunk kicks ass.
Where it's everything that E3 trailer reveal was.
Yeah.
And said it was going to be.
Yeah.
Where you'd be like
I
buying
go
apartments and you could bring your romantic companions back to your apartment. And then apartments the building we live in is a little central hub that is a whole ecosystem of its own.
And
when really
actually
it's
an
just a bunch
incentive
of fucking window dressing.
with an actual incentive to go to your apartment.
Yeah, but it's just like, there's no point to go to the apartment at all. Ever.
Yeah.
Outside of for a quest. The only other instance you would ever need to go there is to access your stash. But every car you buy has a stash on it.
Yeah.
I never went to the apartment outside of needing to for quests. Mm-hmm. Where it was like the guy who was your neighbor, who was a cop, who killed himself. There's some cool shit, but at the end of the day, dude, like, the cool stuff, like, there was so much more that I was like, this just feels lacking. That whole intro, the characters, the relationships that could have been built upon and had more meaning, just the gigs and the fixers that are pointless, that do nothing but annoy you and blow up your phone and track your every move. And then say, come visit me, and go visit them, and you have 3 lines of dialogue, and that's that. They'll never say anything else. They'll never anything more unique about them. There's no incentive to raise your fucking street cred to unlock access to new fixers who have new cyberware that they only have, and their guns and weaponry and armor that only they have, like a progression system through a reputation faction. None of that. None of that. Fuck it. Fuck it. Just have it be a mark on the map that when they get close to, the fixer calls them, says, hey, deets are on the way. And then it'll all just fall to our writing department. And they're going to figure out a way to make it interesting and tell the story, because we're not going to through interactive gameplay. Interactive gameplay is go here, take out these guys, pick that up, walk out.
We're too busy making all the stuff with Johnny Silverhand as good as possible. That's on top of having a separate team
Keanu's
create a totally different build for E3.
Yeah. But let us know down below, guys. Thanks for watching. You good?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Nothing else?
Nah.
Sure?
Mm-hmm.
Promise?
Yes.
Don't fucking hate me, dude.
End it! End this now!
You want to smoke or something, Chubbs? Been a couple hours? Getting a little itchy?
My ass is hurting me.
Alright, guys. Fucking... you don't love that fucking computer chair? You hate it?
It feels like I'm sitting on wood or something, man. It's like... the cushion just got squished into the plastic.
Anyway, guys, fucking love you. Thanks for watching. To everyone who is excited for this and maybe expected a little more, we apologize. Mainly I wanted to focus on things issues I had with the game and Chubbs had with the game. I was like, let's focus on all the stuff that I feel like is the hardest to fix. And also, the most obviously bad stuff. Like the stuff that feels like an amateur developer making a first-time game mistake. Shit that you would not expect from a company like CDPR, who has 3 heavy-hitting RPGs already behind their belt. Under their belt. Because the thing about The Witcher 1 and Witcher 2, I've heard people say like they're not that good. But the thing is they are. In every way that fucking matters, those games are good. And it's oh well, the combat is clunky. Combat doesn't make an RPG. Combat in RPGs is a fucking dice roll, historically. So don't tell me that that is what makes RPGs good. Because guess what? We wouldn't have RPGs without the fucking combat that was a fucking dice roll. That's where it all comes from. And when you play a game like Disco fucking Elysium, dude, get out of here. You need good combat to make a good RPG.
Yeah.
Witcher 2 was better than The Witcher 1 in every aspect. Story-wise, things like that. Witcher 3 pulled everything forward. And I know some people will argue that like the time like spent meditating and like the restrictions on that were more lore friendly to where Geralt had to prepare potions and actually drink them like hours before they actually had the fight, things like that. It's like I'll take arguments for all of that, but in my opinion, in the ways that truly matter, the game got better in every fucking iteration. It looked better. The story was written better. It was bigger. And not only on the scale of like map size, but also on the narrative. It's bigger and more winding with many different roads to travel on. And I feel like coming from that, things were just amateurly thrown together in this. And I was like, let's focus on that. So I feel like if we did let you down or we have a different opinion than you have, understand that I hope that we were able to express our opinion in a way that if you do not share it, at least you can understand it. And I can understand pretty much anyone's opinion that this is a great game. If you still hold CDPR in high esteem after this and don't feel like this is too much of a slip down that slippery slope that leads to a Fallout 76, I can respect that and I can see your opinion. But I just wanted to put forth mine. Chubbs wanted to put forth his. That we feel like overall this is a poor move for them. And a lesser experience. And one that has so many amazing, great moments tied up in it that it's a shame that the rest was just left to rot. And just be wasted in in so many good things just wasted on so much bad, so much unrealized potential, and no brainer game design wise. With you know, let's let's let there be enough money for them to earn in the game that they can buy cars, all the cars that we have for sale in the game. Oh, and you know what? Let's make sure that they get enough crafting components that they can upgrade all their gear that they want. In fact, let's make there be more than that so they can be incentivized to collect multiple iconic weapons and upgrade them all. Instead of them sticking with a single set and still not having enough. Oh, and you know what? Let's add a craft all option, bud. What do you say? Especially when they're crafting components. That shit, wow. Wow. 10-15 minutes just clicking a mouse button. Good job. Like no brainer shit. Anyway, that's it for me, Jax. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Let us know down below what you guys think. Seriously, leave as long a comment as you like. I really enjoy reading them. I enjoy, especially the people. I especially like hearing from people who enjoy hearing from me. Let's just say that, like, especially. So, let us know down below what you guys think. And that's it for me, Jax.
Jubs.
As always, guys, keep being awesome, stay safe, and just remember, like, at the end of the day, the most important thing about this is no matter how you feel, don't ever defend companies that lie to you and then take your money. Don't do it. That's some bullshit scam shit, and they pulled it. And it's okay if you want to forgive them or say that my value felt like it was that I got the value for my buck. It's fine to say that, but don't defend them in the lie. Don't let them become the accepted standard, and definitely don't defend them in the lie by saying that other companies lied similarly and did the same thing, so it must be okay. Don't do it. Be better than that. Be smarter than that, because that's the only way this shit is gonna go away. Is if we all like put a fucking button on that fucking pre-order shit, all that microtransaction shit, all of it. Otherwise, everything is slowly going to blend and melt into the same goddamn game that you've already played. So, till next time, fucking love ya. Take care, everybody.